The Chernobyl Anomalous Zone is a place of many tales and legends, often told by stalkers around the campfire. Among those, some of the most popular stories are about a man nicknamed Strelok, along with his group, who had a large impact on the fate of the entire zone. Hello stalkers and welcome to the Anomalous Dugout. In this video, we will take a detailed look at Strelok's group, who its members were and what they achieved within the zone. Obviously there will be major spoilers for the trilogy, so if you're new to the franchise, be advised. As far as we know, Strelok's party was composed of 5 individuals. There were 3 main characters performing the stalking on the field, being Fang, Ghost and Strelok himself, as well as 2 secondary members who embodied a more supportive role, being Doctor and Guide. Starting with Strelok himself, he is a mysterious and veteran stalker who appears in all games of the trilogy in one way or another. The name Strelok can be roughly translated to shooter or arrow, and in fact the character was initially supposed to be called Gunslinger. Within the stalker community, a rumor spread far and wide that Strelok and his men managed to reach the center of the zone and come back alive. Moreover, Strelok apparently used to work in the northern parts of the zone, although it is unclear if this means he was close to the center or if he came from the Belarusian side. In the series, Strelok was depicted as a resourceful and determined man, ready to do anything to achieve his goals.
You will not stop me. I am going to reach the center of the zone, whatever it takes.
He was also a bit of an introvert, with Barkeep referring to him as quiet and reserved, and Merc saying he was wandering around like a ghost. Lastly, with everything he went through, Strelok must have been a skilled and tough fighter. Fnatic even told him, "You are a real killer. I wouldn't want to stand in your way, ever." Moving on to Ghost, most likely Strelok's best friend. His nickname seems to be reference to his skill of sneaking around unnoticed, as it is often said he was able to infiltrate anywhere without being caught. One of his achievements in that regard was the assassination of the leader of a strange and mysterious faction called Final Day. Another element strengthening the legendary status of this character was his special stalker suit, which had acquired healing properties from anomalies, allowing Ghost to travel without medkits. As for his personality, I assume Ghost was silent and professional, efficient in every way. However, he was also loyal to his friends and perhaps trusted people too easily, which, as we will see, ended up costing him. Despite being no less important than the others, Fang is the one we know the least about, as we've never even seen his face directly. According to Barkeep, he was a weird stalker who talked to himself and spoke with a lisp. It also appears he could be aggressive and harsh towards others when things did not go his way, a behavior that could be the origin of his nickname Fang. We don't really know what type of equipment he used, but he apparently possessed a special exoskeleton with improved night vision. It's possible that Fang upgraded it himself, since he's believed to be a technical genius, and perhaps he acted as some sort of technician for Strelok's group. Indeed, he was the one who came up with the idea of building the decoders, very complex devices made with all the technical parts and other crap found throughout the zone. Then there's Doctor, who is older and maybe like a father figure to Strelok. He lived alongside his tamed Chernobyl dog in a cabin in a remote swamp, a place that Strelok's men could use as a backup base if needed. According to one of the oldest legends of the zone, Doctor was among the first stalkers, and he managed to reach the Wish Granter, where he asked for the ability to help every living creature. Since then, he's been healing all inhabitants of the zone, humans and mutants alike, with skills so great he could even bring back people from the brink of death. Of course, this is only a rumor, and part of it is simply wrong, as Doctor himself said nobody returned from the monolith alive. But it is true that he possesses great proficiency when it comes to fixing up the wounded. As for his relationship with mutants, it remains unclear, but the fact that he has tamed one and is never seen carrying a weapon does suggest he might have the gift to not be attacked by them. In any case, I'm really excited to see him again in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. Last but not least, Guide, another legend of the zone. They say he was the very first stalker and he knows the zone like the back of his hand. Supposedly, Guide can lead you to any place in the zone for the right price, an ability which earned him the nickname of Superconductor. While the rumors are probably a bit exaggerated, it is true that Guide knows routes and paths that others would never suspect, most notably underground tunnels, as he easily traveled through the areas close to the center on multiple occasions. His connection to the rest of Strelok's group is unclear, though it can be assumed he helped them navigate the zone and reach the power plant. Ultimately, Guide seems to be a man of few words, who enjoys exploring the zone all alone. Yet the rest of his personality still eludes me, so I hope to meet him again. The origins of these characters and how the group was formed are unknown, but it can be assumed that they all were veterans of the zone by the year 2011. Indeed, this was the time when Strelok, accompanied by Fang and Ghost, organized an expedition to the center of the zone. It is often said that this journey, which took place in early September, was the first time the trio went to the center. Strelok's comments in Clear Sky seems to indicate that they achieved this by using underground tunnels in order to bypass the effects of the brain scorcher. According to a document written by Strelok himself, he, along with Fang, infiltrated the sarcophagus and found a suspicious door that they could not open. Curious about this mystery, it was decided that Fang would construct a special electronic decoder, which they would use on their next visit to unlock the door. It is unclear what Ghost was up to while that was going on, but we do know he was part of the trip. Perhaps he was waiting at the entrance, keeping an eye for Monolithians. Indeed, Strelok's manuscript mentioned that there were hordes of Monolith patrols around the CNPP. Anyway, the three stalkers were on their way back when things started to go wrong. Somehow Strelok was wounded, and a huge blowout was brewing. With Strelok in critical condition and the emission close to being released, Fang argued that they should abandon him and make their escape.
Fang, we can't just leave him like that.
Just leave him. There is nothing we can do for him. The blowout is minutes away and we won't get through with him.
No, Fang, I'm not leaving him.
Thankfully, Ghost was able to convince Fang not to leave Strelok behind, and they all miraculously made it out alive. This scene shows that even if they are friends, Fang does not show any compassion, unlike Ghost, who most likely was the closest friend to Strelok. The injured Strelok was left at Doctor's place so that he can be patched up.
Hold on, son. You're going to make it.
In the meantime, Ghost and Fang would try to gather components to build a decoder for the door. At this point, the inhabitants of the zone started to realize that something major had happened. Indeed, the emission triggered by Strelok's group's intrusion at the power plant was not an ordinary blowout. It was a gigantic one, which completely changed the landscape of the zone. Anomalous fields were relocated, new paths to previously unexplored areas were discovered, and the fragile balance between the factions was broken. Even worse, blowouts started to occur unexpectedly and much more often than ever before, rendering the zone unstable. The Clear Sky faction, a secretive group of stalkers and scientists based in the swamps, became very concerned with this situation. The top members, led by Lebedev, theorized that the emissions were the result of an intrusion at the zone's center, with the blowouts being a defensive reaction. Believing that something had to be done in order to avoid the zone going nuts and to prevent a third Chernobyl disaster from occurring, Clear-Sky started to track down any lead to find out what happened. Meanwhile, Fang and Ghost roamed the zone looking for the technical parts required to build the decoder. Fang visited Sidorovich, who did not have all the needed materials but did sell him a tube amplifier. News of this strange transaction eventually reached Clear-Sky, and they sent the mercenary S.T.A.L.K.E.R to investigate. Arriving to the cordon a bit later, S.T.A.L.K.E.R learned from Sidorovich about Fang. Following the trader's advice, Fang traveled to the garbage in order to meet with the diggers, who may get their hands on the rest of the electronic components. However, they too did not have everything in stock, triggering Fang's wrath.
I gave Fang the component we found in the cache. He wouldn't stop swearing and said he wouldn't pay us until we found the other components. We discussed it between ourselves and decided to send Vasya to speak to him. Vasya is one silver-tongued son of a gun. We figured he might be able to talk Fang into paying us at least some of the money. I just hope he doesn't run into trouble on the way there.
Unfortunately for the diggers, they all died between Fang's departure and S.T.A.L.K.E.R's arrival, except for Vasyan, although he did not manage to catch up with Fang, who went to the Dark Valley. This episode further shows that Fang was quite rough towards other stalkers, swearing at them and refusing to pay despite being given at least one component. Now, in the Dark Valley, Fang met with the Freedom leader Chekhov and his team of technicians, looking to buy rare parts used in old army cryptographic machines. The transaction was made without any problems, yet Fang refused to tell Chekhov why he needed such materials. Intrigued by the matter, Freedom's technician team hacked Fang's PDA frequency before he left, tracking down his position all the way to the garbage. As a reward for helping his faction, Chekhov shared this info with the S.T.A.L.K.E.R, allowing him to follow Fang's trail to the basement of the flea market. There the merc was ambushed by bandits, who robbed him but also revealed that Fang dropped his gear, including his PDA. He probably had to abandon it in order to escape the thugs, who grabbed the best stuff but left the PDA behind because they thought it was worthless. Fools. S.T.A.L.K.E.R retrieved the PDA to learn more about Strelok's group.
Well, Fang, the situation has changed. Someone knows we reached the center of the zone and they're looking for us. We've got to move, and fast. You'll find a detailed plan of action in our stash. I changed the code.
Having recovered from his injuries, Strelok had left Doctor's place to prepare for a new expedition towards the center of the zone. An interesting detail is the photo of the power plant that he left to Doctor as a proof of their successful first trip. With their suspicions being confirmed, the Clear-Sky faction sent S.T.A.L.K.E.R to the coordinates of Strelok's group stash, which were found in Fang's PDA. Upon reaching the place, hidden in the Agroprom underground, S.T.A.L.K.E.R found new recordings of conversations between the members that further explain what they were doing at the time.
Guys, this is Strelok. I didn't expect Doc to fix me up so fast. I heard rumors that someone has learned of our success and is seeking to contact us. I have a bad feeling about this. I fear we may need to hurry up with our next visit to the center.
Hey, Strelok, good to see you alive. Fang and I found all the parts we needed and put together 2 decoders. We left them both in a stash near the Scorcher. We'll pick them up when we head for the center.
Ghost, that's great news. Our plan is as follows. We can't make it through the underground, so our only option is to go past the Scorcher. I'm on my way to Sakharov to pick up a device that will help us get through the Scorcher in one piece. Wait for me at the military warehouses.
Lebedev was now convinced that the second visit of Strelok to the CNPP would trigger a new disaster. he told the S.T.A.L.K.E.R to intercept Strelok, who went to Lake Yentar, while stalkers from Clear Sky would try to take care of Fang and Ghost. Already in Yentar, Strelok met with Professor Sakharov, head of the scientist camp, and tried to convince him that he went to the center by showing him some photographs. Sakharov did not believe him, though the two men made a deal. The scientists provided Strelok with an experimental psi protection blocker, which he would have to test on the field. In return for successful testing, Strelok was to be given the final version of the device that could help him survive the dangerous psi field of the brain scorcher. However, the Stalker was running out of time and could not afford to wait any longer, being closely chased by S.T.A.L.K.E.R and potentially soon by the entire Clear Sky faction. Therefore, he decided to screw over the scientists and simply leave with the prototype, believing it would be sufficient to protect himself from the brain scorcher. Strelok reached the edge of the Red Forest, with the S.T.A.L.K.E.R hot on his tail. His resolve was strong, however, and he had a few tricks up his sleeve. Firstly, he hired a squad of neutral stalkers to wait for his arrival and cover his back, stopping S.T.A.L.K.E.R right in his tracks. Secondly, he took a tunnel towards the center and blew it up after passage, rendering the path impossible to take for anyone following. While S.T.A.L.K.E.R did manage to deal with the loner's ambush, he lost Strelok's trail here and there. Interestingly, Strelok left a stash nearby which contains an ice bubble artifact along with medicines. Possibly this was supposed to be the payment for the stalkers he hired. Alright, now is where things get a little bit confusing, because we have conflicting information from different sources about what exactly happened next. Firstly, we have to talk about the stashes of Strelok's group in the area around Jupiter. Indeed, in Call of Pripyat, the player could come across 3 caches belonging to the team, each containing an interesting note that apparently were never found. 2 stashes were made by Strelok after he blew up the tunnel. Ghost, I'm taking my things. Thanks for the assault rifle, I'm going to need it. In exchange, I'm leaving you some of Doctor's medical supplies. I managed to trap the mercenary who was on my trail, so I'm not going to need them. I hope. I'm going to meet Fang now. He managed to put the decoders together. Let's meet at the usual place, if you can make it. Strelok. Fang, I can't wait for you any longer. I've got a whole squad on my tail. I'm going to the sarcophagus on my own. I'll leave my lucky shooter here, I haven't got any more ammo for it anyway. If I don't make it back, give it to Ghost. If he takes care of the shooter will take care of him. Take care, Strelok. According to these, Strelok was supposed to meet with Fang in order to get one of the decoders. However, they couldn't meet and Strelok went to the center on his own. This is very strange because it contradicts the earlier conversation between Strelok and Ghost, in which they all were supposed to meet at the military warehouses. Besides, it was Ghost who initially informed Strelok that they built 2 decoders. So why would Strelok later tell Ghost that Fang managed to put one together? There seems to be a few inconsistencies here, which I am unfortunately not able to explain at the moment. And that's not all. The last stash was prepared by Fang himself, but it is unclear when exactly. Strelok, I've left the other decoder in our Pripyat stash just in case. Me and Ghost are headed to the agroprom, so we'll leave our extra ammo here. Take it if you need it. Happy hunting, Fang. So, 1 decoder was left in Pripyat? What about the other one? Didn't Ghost say earlier that both decoders were put into 1 stash near the Scorcher? Yeah, that does not make sense either. Something's amiss. If anyone can figure it out, let me know in the comments. Anyway, here is what I know for sure. Strelok went to pick up one of the 2 decoders and then headed to the power plant. Secondly, and according to data from Shadow of Chernobyl, it seems that Strelok managed to have a final conversation with the ghost via text messages right before reaching the center. Strelok, I have some shitty news. Fang died. They were waiting for us in the village by the warehouses, and I think they were waiting a long time. 3 of them. Seems like your average neutrals. Fang sensed them somehow. You know full well he has a good sense. We ran 2 of them down, clearly bandits, but the 3rd turned out smarter than his buddies. He was sitting with Vintar about 100 meters away. Anyway, there's no more Fang. So next time we'll go to the center together, just the 2 of us. And here's another thing, those 2 had our descriptions. I can't figure out who would want us killed, although actually there are quite a few who have something against us. I let the 3rd one get away. I think it was one of the mercs. Had a big scar on his face, hazel eyes. I'll try to find him. So that's the deal. Keep an eye out and good luck. Ghost. Hey there buddy, leaving you some info. Won't try to get connected. Noticed someone following me. Dude, I went north. There where we were. We'll try to make it through solo. Sorry, but had no time to wait for you. We'll explain later. And that freak that killed Fang will be sorry he was ever born. I'll cut him to pieces. You find out who he is, and I'll be back soon. We'll have it out with him. We're meeting at our mutual friend's place. You know who and where. Good luck, Strelok. Hey, Kame, you weren't there. You shouldn't have gone to the center alone, but no big deal. I know where and with whom to find you. Ghost. Basically, Ghost and Fang went to the military warehouses to meet Strelok according to the plan, but they were ambushed and Fang was shot down. Meanwhile, Strelok could not make his way there and went to the center of the zone alone. This sequence of events clashes with what we saw earlier from the notes left in stashes, so I'm really not sure what to believe anymore. What is certain is that Fang died, Strelok went missing in his attempt to reach the center, and Ghost was left alone. Fang's death and the identity of his assassin is an interesting mystery that is the source of much debate, and we will take a look at it in just a minute. But before that, let us finish with the Clear Sky chapter by following Strelok's journey to the CNPP. He had to make a detour in order to pick up one of the decoders, most likely hidden in the group stash located at the hotel in Pripyat. That must also be when he put his manuscript, containing his valuable notes, within that stash. Due to this delay, the Clear Sky faction was able to arrive at the power plant before him, using an alternate route through Limansk, the hospital and underground passages. Their plan was as follows: keep the Monolith soldiers at bay while S.T.A.L.K.E.R, equipped with an EM-1 electromagnetic rifle, shoots at Strelok to disable his psi protection prototype. The psi field was very strong at the center of the zone, and Lebedev believed that taking down Strelok's psi protection would prevent another disastrous blowout. He was wrong. When Strelok showed up, they acted according to plan and S.T.A.L.K.E.R did manage to break Strelok's prototype. Unfortunately, this did not change much. The zone was pissed, and a huge emission suddenly occurred, probably wiping the Clear Sky forces. As for Strelok, he somehow survived and can be seen laying in one dark corridor, where he, along with other stalkers, were brainwashed. Alright, let's pause for a moment and get back to Fang. According to Ghost, his assassin was a mercenary shooting a Vintar BC, with hazel eyes and a scar on the face. Strelok also later said the culprit was a mercenary. Considering the Clear Sky faction wanted to stop Strelok and his group, the obvious answer would be that S.T.A.L.K.E.R shut down Fang. He does seem to fit the description almost perfectly, except for the hazel eyes part. In fact, at some point during the development of Clear Sky, it appears the player was supposed to fire at Fang. However, in the end we know that S.T.A.L.K.E.R never met with Fang during the events of the game. So who was it then? The most probable answer is that it was another mercenary hired by Clear Sky. This guy from the game's main artwork fits the description as well, wouldn't you say? Another crazy idea is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R did do it, or maybe another version of him. Yes, I am once again referring to the concept of copies, cut from the plot of Clear Sky. You see, it was originally planned for the zone to create copies or clones of stalkers in certain specific circumstances, and it happens that S.T.A.L.K.E.R was supposed to be copied during the blowout at the beginning of the game. If this really happened without ever being revealed in the game, it could be that S.T.A.L.K.E.R's double was the one who killed Fang. The last theory is even more unhinged. It is implied that S.T.A.L.K.E.R was in the corridor along with Strelok when the brainwashing happened. Since the task to kill the Strelok was given to some agents, perhaps the missions to kill the ghost and kill the Fang were also programmed for some of them. What if S.T.A.L.K.E.R was brainwashed and received such a task? Then he was sent out there and performed the command as instructed. I don't think this is possible because the timeline does not match with the fact Ghost informed Strelok of Fang's death before he could reach the CNPP. However, we've already established that there are many inconsistencies with the group's story. So who actually knows what really went down? Actually, we are not even sure if Fang died in the Bloodsucker village. Yes, his grave can be found there, but he also has a second grave, which is actually a stash in Pripyat. Maybe he in fact survived without Ghost knowing, only to later die in Pripyat. Or Ghost buried him in the village but created another memorial for him in a better place, along with his best items picked up from their stash in Pripyat. Honestly, there's no way to tell, so please share what you think about it in the comments. Moving on, the story continues in Shadow of Chernobyl through the point of view of the Marked One. Since I'm sure you already know what happens in this game, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Marked One is actually Strelok, who lost his memory as part of the brainwash. As we will find out later, he was turned into an agent who bears the Stalker mark, with the task of killing Strelok himself planted into his mind. Such agents are sent back from the center to the rest of the zone via death trucks, a trip which often results in their ultimate demise. However, our protagonist is simply built different. He survives the truck crash, gets rescued by a stalker, and wakes up in Sidorovich's bunker, his memory wiped and with a single message in his PDA: kill the Strelok. Actually, the text is also accompanied with a picture of the supposed target. Sidorovich offers the Marked One a deal. If he works for him and other traders, they will help him find the stalker known as Strelok. Our hero knows he will be exploited, but with this lead being the only link to his past, he accepts and gets to work, retrieving information about a military expedition in Agroprom from Nimble. In exchange, Sid gives him a tip about Fox, a stalker who may know something about Strelok, and also instructs him to steal the army documents from the Institute. This signals the beginning of Marked One's journey, which is explained by the hero himself in his PDA journal entries. I've been sharing them on my daily posts, and it's really an interesting read because it gives some valuable insight on Strelok's spirit of mind while he lived all these moments, so I highly suggest you check them out. Anyway, Marked One would continue to search for Strelok and do important work for the traders, uncovering some of the secrets of the zone in the process. He visits Strelok's stash in the Agroprom underground, where he learns about Fang's death and the existence of ghosts, then steals military documents about the experiments from the X laboratories, before raiding one of them, designated X-18. He also meets with Barkeep and hears the rumor that Ghost went to work for the scientists at Lake Yantar. Indeed, following Strelok's disappearance, it seems Ghost tried to follow into his footsteps, using the help of the Eggheads to learn more about the psi emissions blocking the path to the north. Shortly before Mark 1's arrival, Ghost went down into another lab called X-16 along with Professor Vasiliev, in an attempt to disable the psi emitter residing there. Unfortunately, during the mission, Ghost was hit by powerful emissions, prompting Vasiliev to panic and run away. While he did manage to get out of the underground, he was overwhelmed and killed by zombies next to the exit. Meanwhile, Ghost was confronted by a controller and sadly met his end there. Sakharov mentioned to Mark 1 that Ghost and Vasiliev raided the lab a week before his arrival, which means that if he was just a bit faster, he could have found Ghost still alive, and the story would have been so different. But this was not meant to be. Mark 1 acquired a psi protection helmet from Sakharov. Hey, that happened once already? Though for some reason the professor did not recognize him as Strelok. One theory suggests he could have been wearing a mask during the events of Clear Sky. Or maybe Sakharov simply does not remember, who knows. Psi emissions could have gotten to him. Upon raiding Lab X-16, Strelok managed to shut down the psi emitter and found Ghost's body, on which he acquired useful information on how to find the guide. Also, it should be mentioned the person in the photo of the task killed Strelok was actually Ghost, confusing the marked one. Someone must have made a mistake, but who? We'll see soon enough. The hero then went to find Guide, who also for some reason did not recognize him. Is it possible Guide had not met Strelok before? Unlikely, but I'm not sure. It is interesting to note that not all depictions of Strelok seem to show him with the same face, a problem that is most likely due to oversights in the development. Strelok's canon appearance is certainly his latest one. Anyway, Guide explained that the doctor would be at the stash, and so he went.
Hey, Strelok! Strelok, come on, man, wake up! Oh, that's better. You had me worried. What the hell are you doing, man? Have you lost your memory or something? You were the one who suggested that we take this precaution. Oh well, at least you are still alive. Look, Strelok, we've got no time, so I need you to listen to me. Everything you have said about the monolith is true. All of it. It is just an illusion manufactured in a lab next to the sarcophagus. And nobody who reached the monolith has ever come back. It looks like they have died there. But anyway, while you're away, I dug up some more info. And basically, there is a decoder to open the door which leads to the monolith controls. This decoder is hidden in a stash in Pripyat. Now I'm going to give you the coordinates of this stash, and I'm giving you the key to open it. I want you to take the decoder, and I want you to find the door in the sarcophagus. And then you'll know what to do. But it seems that this is the only way of uncovering the zone's real secret. This is the one you have been trying to work out, Strelok.
With the truth now revealed, the psi protection device on his head and the coordinates of the Brain Scorcher installation found in the X-Lab's documents, Strelok was ready to head north. he pushed through hordes of Monolith soldiers and disabled the antennas, opening the way to the zone's center for everyone. This started a real gold rush, where every faction attempted to get to the power plant as fast as they could. Strelok knew he had to get there, but first he went to Pripyat to access the stash, located at Hotel Policia. There he found the remaining decoder, as well as the manuscript written by his own hand, which he must have put there the last time he had gone to the center. This is where the Mark 1's, or should I say Strelok's, PDA entries end. The last thing to do was to get inside the sarcophagus and open the mysterious door. Despite a whole military operation taking place at the CNPP, our hero found a way to pass through the soldiers clashing with the Monolithians, and got inside the building before a gigantic emission. Underneath the reactor, he found the door and stormed the Monolith Control Center, where he destroyed the power source for the deception known as the Wish Granter. Right after, he was greeted by the representative of the Sea Consciousness, the entity behind all of this.
Hello, Strelok. I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can decide what to do with you.
What followed was a lengthy and fruitful conversation during which the representative answered all of Strelok's questions. I will not enter into all the details because this video is focusing on Strelok's group rather than the whole mystery behind the zone, but basically the character learned the following. The Sea Consciousness is an entity composed of the connected minds of 7 scientists. The zone was born due to a mishap made by this superconsciousness. It is a rift in the noosphere, the Earth's informational field, which they mistakenly opened while trying to erase negative emotions from mankind. In order to protect their secret and themselves while working on a solution, the Sea Consciousness used several Psi installations and brainwashed stalkers to do their bidding. The brainwashed agents receive the S.T.A.L.K.E.R tattoo and are sent into the zone via the death trucks. However, most of them do not survive the trip. Strelok was a target of such agents because he was too close to discovering the zone's secret. When he was caught at the power plant at the end of Clear Sky, his identity somehow remained unnoticed, and he became one such agent, given the assignment to kill himself. Lastly, the Sea Consciousness is trying to stop the zone, but they could use more resources, so they asked Strelok to join them. However, he refused to take part in this deception, and made the decision to eliminate the scientists instead. After a final fight with Monolith forces, Strelok reached the antechamber of the Sea Consciousness and destroyed the pods in which its members lied, destroying the entity. What Strelok exactly did after this moment remains unclear, though it was not the last we would see of him, as showcased in Call of Pripyat. Following the failed Operation Fairway, military helicopters crashed and many soldiers were left stranded close to the center of the zone, with an evacuation point located in Pripyat. The survivors in Zaton were led to the city by the crazy stalker named Noah, while those lost near Jupiter were lucky enough to bump into the legendary Guide. Guide led those to Pripyat as well, where they linked up with the rest and established a base at the laundromat. Later on, they would be joined by Major Dektyrev, a USS agent sent into the zone to investigate the failure of the operation. Meanwhile, Strelok and Guide met in an undisclosed location. Guide told Strelok about the military survivors and how to reach them via the underground tunnels. Shortly after, Strelok showed up at the laundromat, asking to speak with the army commanders. Indeed, it seems he had decided to reveal everything he knew about the zone to the officials, so that they could take control of it and perhaps destroy it. Interestingly, Major Pt.2 recognized the name Strelok and even knew it was him who turned off the brain scorcher. I wonder how he got hold of this info. In any case, during his meeting with Major Pt.2 and Operation Leader Colonel Kowalski, Strelok shared his knowledge and explained why the helicopters crashed. They had flown into anomalies which changed position during an emission. He also gave a solution to this problem. In order to fly the birds safely, they would simply need to dispatch them with maps of anomalies scanned right after a blowout had occurred. With this valuable information, the remaining soldiers were successfully evacuated, along with Strelok himself. In the aftermath, Strelok did share his secrets with the government, which prompted the creation of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the Scientific Institute for Research in the Chernobyl anomalous area, where he took the position of Chief Scientific Consultant. And that's where his story ends, for now. All that's left is to wait for the release to see if Strelok will be in the new game. Whatever happens, I bet he will have some sort of impact on the plot one way or another. As for now, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.